Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to 22 Panels. My guest today is the author of Paper Planes, Jennie Wood. Jennie, thank you for joining us. I really enjoyed um, your panel at C2E2. I really enjoyed your book. Um, and you kicked off one of my I'm a little autistic and I'm a huge big picture like cross medium thinker, and you said something during the panel that has kicked off my most recent obsession, um, because you talked about well, no, we'll get to that in a second. Pitch your book. Give us the front front counter pitch for Paper Planes. How would you sell it to somebody looking at YA books?
Paper Planes is about the summer before everything changes. It's the summer before Leighton and Dylan go to high school. So that summer between middle school and high school where when everything changes, that summer right before, life will never be the same again. And Leighton and Dylan are best friends. They got sent to a summer camp for troubled youth because of an incident they were both involved with. And that summer, they really have to reckon with who they are, what they did to get there, and what their friendship is going forward.
Um, you talked at C2E2 about when you were writing it was as you were coming out as non-binary and writing a non-binary character was therapeutic for you. And only starting there because that's the rabbit hole I went down. You said something for, that for me was really prophetic. You talked about how you had come out as a lesbian in your 20s, but that had never really fit. It was the best word you had. So when you got a new word, you went, "Oh, wait, this is it." And so the rabbit hole that I've been down is the power of language, not just to communicate, but to figure out, well, how it interacts with our brains, how it interacts with society, how creation of new words can be liberating to the people that they describe, that you suddenly have a way to go, "Oh, I can tell you why I go all over the place. I'm autistic. It's part of that. I can sometimes mask it, but that's a lot of effort. So if you would just accept that I go all over the place, that would be so wonderful to me." Um, while also being scary because if you fit into the existing words, these new words, I mean, it's new on so many different levels. It's like it's easy to go, "Oh, that didn't exist when I was a kid," because the word didn't exist. The thing probably existed, but the word didn't exist, and that makes the world feel so different. And it's one thing to have a word like internet where you can see, "Oh, there's this new thing that wasn't there when I was a kid," which I just dated myself. I guess the internet was kind of there as the what, DARPA net. but but I remember when we started getting AOL CDs in the mail every day, 3 times a day. So I mean, uh, without taking you down the wormhole, unless you want to, talk to me about language and what it meant to you, and then how it shaped this book.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was
And
thinking about how,
sorry if that was the
no,
way more
no,
philosophical question than you were expecting to
no,
lead off with.
I love it. I love it. As you were talking, I was thinking about language in Paper Planes. So Dylan
Right,
really wrestles with where they belong in the world. They're on the girls' tennis team,
right,
and they don't feel like they fit in there. And they actually say, if I did want to be a professional tennis player, um, you know, it's either you play for the Women's Tennis Association, the WTA, or you play men's. There's no non-binary
right,
league, right?
right.
There's literally no place for them, and I could really relate to that growing up as a kid, because Dylan's very close to me. As you said, I wrote this book while I was coming out as non-binary, and I was wrestling with it when I got handed the project.
Right.
And the great editor, writer Erica Schultz reached out to me on
I
behalf of
love
Mad Cave.
Erica
I
Schultz.
know, and we're longtime
Erica
friends.
has been on the air. We love Erica.
Yes, yes,
I've been trying to get her back, but she's been so busy lately. So
I
hi,
know.
Erica, if you're listening.
I know. Erica is great. She's a longtime friend, and they had this project at Mad Cave, Mavericks. Maverick is the young adult branch of Mad Cave, and Erica thought of me and reached out to me. And um, the idea was a camp for troubled youth, and the two people friends who are there are using paper planes to communicate and take it from there. And so I wanted to do a non-binary character, because that's what I was wrestling with. And because I didn't have that term available to myself when I was a teenager, I wanted to write a teenager who was non-binary and just see what it would be like to know that about
Right.
yourself when you're 14 years old, right? So, and Dylan wrestles with the trappings of language, in terms of gender, but also in terms of a love language, because their their feelings for Leighton and how they love Leighton is different than how Leighton loves them. And so, um, but for me, language has always been a struggle for me, and it was really my journey in comics and graphic novels that led me to figure out who I am, figure out that I'm non-binary. As you mentioned, I at 18 years old, I left a very small town in North Carolina and I went to Chicago. I went to a theater conservatory in the heart of Chicago in Lincoln Park. And it was very eye-opening. Of course, suddenly I'm in a big city, and I I got a fake ID and I snuck into all the queer clubs, all the gay clubs. So Berlin,
Right.
which I know closed recently, um, Roscoe's, and it was like the only identity available to me was lesbian, even though I didn't feel comfortable. I never felt comfortable in a lesbian bar, and I never felt comfortable going to women's festivals that were all women. I felt actually more comfortable in
I,
the
I have to ask an odd question
no,
here
go
because you
ahead.
said Roscoe's.
Yeah.
Roughly what years? I never like to ask people how old they
We're in
are,
the
but
90s at this point. I also
we're
went into
talking late 90s or early 90s.
mid.
Okay. So I
Yeah.
was probably there like right after you because
Yeah.
I was the honorary member of the Chicago lesbian community for a while and their designated driver.
We just missed each other. We just missed each other.
In like the probably I mean not a ton because I was never a bar guy, but a couple of my best friends were lesbians. I seem to get along with all of their friends, so they just dubbed me the honorary member, and we they'd get me in because they knew bouncers or were the bouncers.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And I eventually found my way to music. I fronted a rock band, and I
oh,
also bartended at music venues.
okay.
And I would do work the door, like the Fireside Bowl. I'd work the
Okay.
door and help load in the bands, things like that. So I found my place, and my place had nothing to do with gender or sexuality. My place
Right.
was that music scene, because Chicago has an amazing music scene. But before
Fantastic
that,
music
yeah,
scene.
it was amazing to be a part of that music scene. But and the reason I didn't feel
What band?
comfortable, my band's name was Heather's Damage, and I just named after the movie Heathers. And right
The
now,
poster behind you that our listeners won't see, but there is a Heather's poster behind her.
yes, yes. Heathers is still my favorite movie. And I always gravitate toward teen stories, teen angst. So big surprise there. But back
Teen
to,
stories are fun.
well, exactly. Yeah.
They're so formative and you can do anything with them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I have that problem.
No. It's
Like,
okay.
shoot me down if I am terrible. That's the one downside when I don't have a co-host, because that's sometimes Tyler's job is shut up, Tad. Jenny's talking.
No, it's a long winding road. And it sounds like our worlds overlapped in
A
Chicago,
little bit.
a
I
little
think
bit.
we like just missed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So naturally, my obsession as a writer was gender, in part because I didn't feel like the lesbian identity was the best fit for me. There's nothing wrong with the lesbian identity. I just didn't feel it again felt like a shoe that it didn't fit. So I started writing about gender in comics. I did a graphic novel series with Jeff McComsey called Flutter. It's about a girl who shapeshifts into a boy because her dream girl is straight. So she becomes this boy to pursue her. And then all the chaos that ensues for that. It was a 3-volume graphic novel that Dark Horse put out as a collection, I think in 2017. Um, that work and a young adult novel that I wrote about a trans boy called A Boy Like Me, which I wrote when I was trying to figure out if I was trans, like maybe
Right.
that because it's again, I hadn't heard non-binary. I hadn't heard that term yet when I was working on these projects. So I write Flutter, I write A Boy Like Me, and I start going to comic conventions. And in 2015, I go to Queers in Comics, which is a conference in Midtown Manhattan, and I'm asked to be on a panel, and I'm asked what my pronouns are. And I said she, her, hers very calmly to the moderator, but inside I had this visceral reaction like I was like, well, why would you think I would be anything else? Like, and it was such an extreme reaction. I'm like, oh, something's here.
Right.
And then I started, talking about that and learned about the terms non-binary from people at comic conventions and the term cisgender. And that started me down the rabbit hole of maybe this is me. And then, I get to the place right when the pandemic hits where I'm like, oh, I'm non-binary. And so to go through kind of this acknowledgement, this coming out while we're all isolated, I mean, was not the easiest thing. So Paper Planes was a gift because I got to write about it and I got to talk about it with, Erica, who was our, first in line editor guiding us through the process. And I got to talk about being non-binary with Dozer, who Dozer draws, who's the artist on Paper Planes. They
Fantastic work.
also, yes, amazing work. And they are also non-binary. And they're in Germany. So even if we hadn't been in a pandemic, our working relationship would have been long distance.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So that's a
Um,
long story, but it's how I learned the language. It's how
I,
I learned
I
the
I
language.
like long stories. I mean, I don't know if you wound up listening to anything other than the episode with Paper Planes, but I can get long-winded.
No, I have listened to others and I love long stories too.
Okay, good. Then we're the podcast for you. Don't try to catch up with all the episodes. We put out way too many. Just pick and choose based on that topic looks interesting. I try to tell my mother this, but she's going to be listening to everyone anyway. Hi, Mom. Um, so yeah, that's awesome, and I love. I, it was actually you're the second one on the panel I've talked to this week. I was talking to Richard Hamilton on Tuesday. And I'm going to say something similar to you that I said to him. What I love is that there's so much to learn in terms of morals of the story, in terms of acceptance, in terms of actions having consequences, whatever. But none of it is forced on the reader. The reader can just read a fun camp story and choose what they engage with at what level. The seeds are planted. I'm a teacher, so seed planting is one of my favorite things because, when somebody's, clearly not seen part of the book and they have an opinion that's based on the part that they like understand, you can throw in well, but what about this? What do you mean? What? Oh, oh, and you can see the gears moving, and that's the most fun part of being a teacher is watching gears move. Just like the best compliment I ever get is Mr. E, you make me think. They generally don't mean it as a compliment, but I take it as one.
That's
It's normally,
great.
I want to work on this with so and so because you make me think. It's like,
Right.
yeah, yeah, we're at a school. I thought that was part of what we did here. High school kids.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, how much of that is a conscious decision, and how much of that is, you're a storyteller and you're telling characters that are obviously gonna lead to greater morals, messages, whatever, but really you wanted to tell the heart of the story, which is two friends going through a transition. Um, yeah, that's a poorly worded question for a bigger concept that I hope you're getting.
No, I do. I mean, I just, you just want the three-dimensional character on the page. You want as close to a real person as you can get, the flaws and everything. And so it's about really fleshing out, doing a lot for me, it's a different process for everyone, but it's doing a lot of writing off the page, a lot of character development. So you really get you get to the good, the bad, and the ugly of a person. You get to the essence of a person. And then it becomes about, it's more than what their sexuality is or what their gender is, or those aren't the most important things about them, right? It's what's their essence? What do they want? And what is their biggest fear? And yeah, so before I start scripting or even outlining, I just spend a lot of time developing the characters. And I answered the big questions of what's their biggest fear, what's their biggest bias, what do they want, but also like what's in their fridge and what's their favorite article of clothing and what's their favorite TV show and what's their favorite music that they listen to. And all those things may sound little and minor and trivial, but they all add up
They
to
absolutely add up.
a three-dimensional person. And so then when you start to write the story, some of those things filter in and some of those things don't. But what really comes through, I think, is the core of a character and a layered person who, has a lot of emotional turbulence or a huge inner landscape that then the reader can take what they want to from it.
Right,
I mentioned I was in a band, and so as a songwriter, you write a song and you want the listener to take from it what they want to take from it. Like I think the
right.
best songwriters do that. Whether it's like Leonard Cohen, or I remember the first time I heard Losing My Religion by REM, and I'm like,
REM.
what is the song about? And then I'm like,
Right,
it's going to be about what it is for me. Like I'm just going to make my own
right.
interpretation of it. And so I think with a book, it's okay if a reader doesn't get all of it, or they just take what they want out of it. I think that's a good thing. It means they've got something out of it, or it's a safe space for them, and they just want to see what they want to see, and that's okay.
That you ever seen the documentary Imagine? It's got a lot of original home movie footage from John Lennon through the years. And there's this scene where this guy has like broken into his estate in England and gets to the door, and security's there, but Lennon decides to let him talk. He's like, I don't even remember the song. He's like, what does it mean? I feel like and John's like, I don't know that meant anything to me. That was more of a Paul song. But what does it mean to you?
Right.
Because whatever it means to you, that's what it means. Now we're having breakfast. You want to come in? And I'm like, you know, uh, John was often a jerk, so that's probably, one of his good moments. Um, because it's also pre-Sean. John got nicer after he had his second child.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, no, it's true. Unfortunate for the first child,
oh
but
yeah.
definitely
So
for Sean.
apparently Paul was very good to him. So he had
Yes.
his surrogate father.
Yes.
Being an artist apparently is not an easy thing. Um, but yeah, no, and I mean, you just, I mean, comics and music are probably the two mediums that are most, um, yes, when the microphone goes away from my mouth, people can't hear me anymore. And since you're not talking, the listeners, such as they are, hi mom, hi John, um, are used to Eddie's antics.
Well, I'm finding Eddie adorable. I was
He
worried that
is.
my dog would be barking during our interview, so I'm
I mean,
appreciating
my
that.
dog occasionally decides to bark during interviews, so he sometimes gets jealous of Eddie getting my attention too. So I'm surprised that he's not down here yet. Um, but where was I going? Oh, comics and music, I think even more than prose or film, probably on par with poetry. Um, the listener, the reader is the final collaborator. You know, there's so much. I mean, sometimes in a movie, sometimes in prose, you'll design it this way, but there's so much naturally in the space between words. There's so much that's naturally open to interpretation, that encourages interpretation, that encourages thought and filling in the gaps. I mean, there's a reason that Scott McCloud spent an entire chapter of understanding comics on the space between panels,
Yes. Yes.
because that's where so much happens. Um, so yeah, I always think it's interesting the number of comics music crossover people. Cecil Castellucci was in a band. Terry Moore was in a band.
Mhm.
Apparently,
Mhm.
you were in a band.
Yeah.
You know.
Nate Powell.
Yeah, Nate
Um,
Powell. Sophie, how did I forget Nate Powell? I just talked to him about his punk rock book.
right. Well, there's a lot of crossover, and as we're talking, I'm thinking also the connection of collaboration. So when you're in a
Right.
band, how you how you collaborate with other musicians, and you kind of leave a lot to the other. So I was in a three-piece band, and the bass player does, so I was doing rhythm guitar and lead guitar, but
Okay.
you lean heavily on the bass player to do a lot of the melody,
Okay.
and the drummer to fill in a lot of the missing holes too. Like you collaborate, you just
Right.
lean on each other. And so it was a natural thing for me when I started writing comics to kind of just toss the ball over to the artist, or like leave a lot of room for the artist. And I'm always thinking about the artist in the way that I would think when I was writing a song about the bass player, about the
Okay.
drum. What's the drummer going to do? Or this is great
Right.
for the drummer. Things like that. So there are similarities with how we collaborate in comics and music too, which I love.
Right. So talk to me about your comics journey. Um, I mean, starting from like why comics? So like not just your comics creation journey, but like talk to me about what comics you got into, what made you start going,
Yeah.
ooh, this is something that I'd like to do. Ooh, this opened my mind to something, opened whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a great question. So when I was a kid, like yeah, I came back to comics as an adult. When I was a kid,
That's a very common
I
story.
know. I'm almost like, do I even need to say that? Because that's like so much. That's the story for
No,
almost
I mean
everybody.
it's worth saying because that means I'm going to make certain that I ask what brought you back,
Right.
you
Right.
know.
As a kid, comics were an escape, but they were also, so I grew up in a very volatile household in terms of my parents were always arguing.
I
And
know
the
that
only
one.
thing, yeah, that's a common thing too. And the only thing that could get them to stop arguing is if I was even more furious than they were. So I became the Hulk. And the way I figured that out was through the Hulk, through the comic books,
Okay.
right? And so the Hulk was this gift to me, this godsend, because I realized that was my superpower. I could get my parents to stop arguing if I became the Hulk. And it made me feel like I wasn't alone, that comic. It made me feel like I wasn't going nuts. It gave me agency, it gave me something to do, and it gave me something that made me feel special. Of course, then I became an adult. And you can't go around turning into the Hulk. I don't turn into this
I
green
mean,
thing,
I
right?
mean, you can, but you generally get incarcerated at some point.
Yes, and it's a tool that I no longer needed.
Right.
So a lot of time, a lot of work in therapy, and I got that under control because, I realized I don't need that anymore. I'm not a 8-year-old, 13-year-old in the house with my parents anymore. I don't need that type of temper, that type of rage. Right.
So as I'm going back to look at Hulk books from like roughly your age, you might have been reading the yeah, there's books by Peter David and Gary Frank in that era. There's Bill Mantlo and Mike Mignola in that era. That was a good Hulk era.
Thankfully, thank God. Thanks for that was a huge refuge. And I think what happens is you go off to college. I got out of that house. I then didn't want to look at the comics, right? I didn't want to be
Right.
reminded of that. And then got involved with my band. But while I was playing with my band, booking shows, doing the whole thing, all that business that comes with being in a band, I missed writing.
Okay.
Um, and I missed just the act of writing, just sitting at a computer or sitting with a notebook and just writing by myself. So I started doing that, and then I missed collaborating. And around this time, I started reading graphic novels. So this
Okay.
is post college, post band. Um,
Which
and I
which
fell
ones
in,
hooked you?
so three graphic novels, all very different, but just amazing pieces of work.
I mean,
So
that's how you hook somebody on a medium is when
yeah,
they get to read different things in that medium and they
yes,
go, "Oh, wait a minute. This is
yeah,
a medium, not
right.
just a
Right.
genre."
So Craig Thompson's Blankets,
So good.
Alison Bechdel's Fun Home, of course,
Also so
and
good.
Brian K. Vaughan's Why the Last Man,
I
which just
think I have all of those within like reach.
those three, and especially Why the Last Man, just because I love an epic story that's grounded in rich character development. And I just became obsessed with those. I read them over and over. And I was working at the time on a short story about a girl who has a thing for another girl, but that other girl's into boys. And so this girl shapeshifts into a boy. And
Right.
the problem with the short story with the prose, it just felt very flat. And then I
Right.
started this story is very Goldilocks. So then
Right.
I started working on a screenplay, teleplay, but I couldn't get my brain around the bad, like shape-shifting special effects. Or do
Right.
you have a different actor playing the boy? Like all of that stuff. And I just looked at my stack of Why the Last Man and I'm like, why not? Let's do a
Right.
graphic novel.
Okay.
Let's do this. And that's why Flutter is a graphic novel series and wasn't floppies.
Right.
Um, and it was three because we told our story in three, but each one is around 200 pages. And I worked with Jeff McComsey on those over a series of like 8 years. Um, and that's the whole story. That's my comics journey.
Did you know that Why the Last Man almost didn't happen?
I did not know that.
Yeah, well, we've talked to Paul Levitz a few times, and he told us a story the first time he was on, um, when Karen had brought it to him the first time. He looked at it and said, "Only one man, all women, teenage fantasy. What do you do after issue 5? No." And Karen and Heidi McDonald are like, "Brian's got a 60 issue plan. He's gonna, blah blah blah." Mind you, Brian didn't actually have that plan. He bullshitted them.
Yeah.
Um, but they believed in Brian. It's gonna be great, blah blah blah. And Paul's just like, I'm really not. And finally, apparently, Karen turned to him and said, Paul, do you trust me? Well, yeah. Then make the goddamn book.
Nice. Oh, thank goodness.
So
Wow.
60 issues later, Heidi's moved on. They invite her back for lunch when the last issue came out, and he brought a cake in the shape of a crow. Um,
Oh, I love that story. That's so great.
yeah, but Paul's one of the good guys. Paul's one of the good guys.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I loved it. I loved it when he told that story because I'm like, oh wow, one of and I mean, just the dominoes that could fall at that point. If Y doesn't get made, does he do Runaways? If Runaways doesn't get made, does he have the clout to do a saga?
Right.
Does he get to go to Hollywood and then come back and do a saga? I mean, how much does the entire landscape of comics change
Right. Right.
if Karen Berger doesn't put her foot down?
I don't know if we'd be talking here today. I mean, from
Right,
my personal like standpoint of it, I don't know if I write Flutter because Flutter, it just, I mean, that it was inspired directly by Why the Last Man, and just
right,
it doesn't have the huge sweeping story, but it inspired me to go for that and
right.
to imagine a world and stick very drawn out rooted characters, and you can do anything. I mean, that's what
Right.
Why the Last Man showed me could happen.
I mean, that's the greatest crime of the way that comics are underrated publicly and treated as children's stuff or whatever is that there's no medium with more possibility than comics.
Right.
There's nothing you can't do in a comic if you can imagine it.
Right.
Um, we're it's like film is almost getting there, but most of the ways that it gets there, it's by aping comics.
Yes.
You know?
No, I completely agree. And I'm thinking about how, time after time, I keep coming back to comics and graphic novels because I like to take a break and go, let me go write, this young adult manuscript, like prose, or let me go write this screenplay. And then it's like, no, I want this to be a graphic novel because I can
Well,
control it, it can get done, and I can do more with it.
and let's be honest, the other great crime of comics being underappreciated is they don't pay as well. And
Right.
and and artists also need to eat and have
Yes.
roofs over their head and things like that. Um, yeah, that's a cool journey. Um,
Yeah, I love that you have all three of those books that I mentioned.
at least volume. Actually, no, there's blankets.
Bye.
I thought that I might have had blankets somewhere else recently. Fun Home's right there, and I think I have at least a volume of Why the Last Man down on the bottom shelf there. Um, because it's organized by author. Yeah,
That's great.
I'm a nerd and I like good books, and those are all fantastic books. And you're right, they are very. I mean, there's a through line between Fun Home and Blankets, and Why is something different. For that matter, Why is the only one that was put out in single issues. I probably have 50 of the single issues of it somewhat within arm's length right now. Um, which is a whole different beast trying to work a story single issues. So I mean, when you said with Flutter you didn't even think about trying to go single issue, is that because you've always, or at least when you came back, were more attracted to the collected volumes and the graphic novels, or is it just
I think it honestly probably just comes down to the very simple fact that when I came across Why the Last Man, I came across that first volume of
volume?
like novel, and I'd
Right.
already read Blankets and Fun Home, so I was thinking of telling the story in that way because you're completely right, of course. Like it's a single issues are a different beast. It's a different
Hmm.
way of thinking about it. Getting the reader to return. I mean, each chapter you want to leave them with a cliff. You want to resolve something, but
Right.
also cliffhanger.
Right.
but there's a little it's a little more pressure, I think, on the single issues. And I also just think I came to it having written a young adult novel and also having written plays when I was at the theater conservatory. So 3 acts, and I just thinking in terms of a longer story overall,
Right.
right?
Right. No, it just popped into my head because I mentioned, I think before we started recording, I was talking to Kelly Thompson yesterday, and she does a lot of stuff that would probably make it easier for her if she was thinking more graphic novel type. But she's also so used to floppies, grew up on floppies, has her name in floppies, that there's a part of her that's terrified because you put in a lot of eggs in a basket,
Yeah.
not doing anything else for that
Yeah.
period of time.
Right.
you know. And comics are just such a weird industry that way. Which is actually, and I'm gonna pivot a little bit here. You're working with Maverick, you're working with Mad Cave. Um, I have been blown away by them this year. I mean, they've been on my radar for a while, but they seem to have made a concerted push as part of their 10th anniversary to like go from C and D list comic to B plus C list, not Marvel DC, not quite Image Dark Horse, but right in there with Boom and Vault and the other ones that 90% of stores are gonna carry, while at the same time having a much better graphic novel ground game than most of the other publishers that do single issues. I've been really impressed at their ability to go, no, let's do this as a graphic novel. I mean, that was something that Richard and I talked about. There was at least some thoughts in his head that Scoop would have been single issues, and it's like, no, this is a good graphic novel. Um, so I mean, what's it like working with Maverick? I mean, you talk some about Erica, and I love Erica. Um, I got Lauren Hitzhusen coming up next week. I'm looking forward to getting to know her.
Yeah,
What's the
Lauren was fantastic too. So we had started on Paper Planes before Lauren joined Mad Cave Maverick. Um or joined us on the
right?
project, but she came on board and just took the project to another level. Fresh pair of eyes. She's extremely talented. She caught some things that just because we'd been working on it for a while, we had overlooked and just made it a better, even better book, I think. And working with her has been lovely. And everyone at Mad Cave and Maverick is just fantastic.
Yeah,
And I've gone to conventions and done panels. That's where I met you at
right.
C2E2. And they're just always great. They're great to all their creators, all their artists. I just making sure we have everything we need. Um, uh, they're great about especially with the artists, not overloading them too much.
Yeah.
Reasonable deadlines, not just
Well, and I said it a couple times when I was talking to Richard. I'm gonna say it again here because this is like a big deal in the industry. Um, like one of my first things when I got to C2E2 is I knew that I had some friends there who'd recently done stuff for Mad Cave, and I wanted to get the download because we've gotten two into a couple of publishers that like were doing great stuff, and then it turned out nobody who was making that stuff was getting paid.
mm,
Um,
mhm.
bankruptcies and rights
Yeah,
issues and whatever. So, it's like, I need to before we get too excited about Mad Cave Summer, I want to get the inside on what it's like to work at Mad Cave. And I heard words that I'd never heard before, direct deposit. I'm like, what?
yeah,
And then I heard specifically, and this like for an artist, this is like gold because I mean, you're right. Artists are often overworked or have trouble. An artist I was talking about told me that Wednesday has become his most productive day because if he gets pages in by like 10 o'clock on Wednesday, they'll be reflected on the Thursday direct deposit. The
yeah,
turnaround is that fast in terms of
yeah.
Um, and that level of professional, I mean, what it tells me is somebody who's worked in a number of industries is they did that crazy thing that not enough comics people have done, that they have an HR and or payroll specialist, which, you'd think that'd be your first hire, but
Would be. Yes, and they're very quick about getting back to us on anything and everything.
right.
Just amazing group of people to work with.
Yeah. Well, and they also seem to take marketing seriously and not discount the comic shop market, but not like completely rely on the comic shop market, I mean, because
Right.
like paper planes, I can think of a dozen comic shops off the top of my head that would absolutely carry it and be able to hand sell it. And I can think of a dozen shops that if you gave it to them, it would still sit on the shop shelf for years because they wouldn't know how to hand sell it and they wouldn't put it anywhere where anybody would find it and whatever. Um, but I think like 85% of the libraries in the country would like a copy if they were told what it was. I can think of teachers who would teach it if they knew about it. And talking with I always forget which one was marketing and which one was direct marketing because I was talking to Maya and Anna together. Um, but it's clear that that's stuff that they think about. They
Yes.
don't just think, they don't just fall to the basic, this is where comics go market. They go,
Right.
what books is this? I mean, they're making teacher guides for things.
Yes.
That's brilliant. It's
Yeah.
brilliant. Um, it's really, and the other thing that seems clear is that, I mean, they're not going to turn down Hollywood money if it comes their way, but they're not chasing it. That they're working on a business plan where it's a workable business plan as a comics company, you
Right.
know.
Right.
Um, and I just love that because again, I can't emphasize enough, comics are the perfect medium. So to the extent that we can't make it money in comics, I think that's a large part a lack of creativity on the part of the business side of comics, the people that it shouldn't be creators' jobs to have to. I mean, the creators that can do it, great, but it shouldn't be the creator's job to find the market. That's a whole different skill set from
Yes.
drawing or writing or lettering or coloring or whatever,
Right. No,
Um,
you're exactly right. And Mad Cave, they've got the business model, they've got the business side of things worked out, the marketing side of things, they're very thoughtful with, so they've got that going, and they know how to take care of their creators.
right,
You know?
which is equally important because whatever the movie studios would like to think. I know enough writers that I lived the writers' strike in a very real way. um, Without the creators, you don't have a product.
Right.
No,
Right.
no AI is gonna make a comic book that people are gonna like beat the door down to get.
Right.
Um, eh, that's not what we wind up talking about in schools or over cups of coffee. It's not what we're reading 50 years later. Uh, so I really appreciate seeing it, and I'm not trying to say that other comic because Image treats their people well, but Image is really a we'll do what you ask us to, but you have to either hire or do all of this on your own. Uh,
Right.
Paul Levitz is on the board at Boom, and Boom has generally done well, but they also tend to be conservative in terms of what they'll pick. They want you to have established yourself for the most part before they're gonna take a
Right.
big. So what Mad Cave has been blowing my mind with is that they both go out and find people I've never heard of. I mean, no offense, I need to
Yeah.
go read Flutter, but until I saw you on the panel, I didn't know your name, and I'm a comics geek. It's not
Yeah.
easy. to, to fly under my radar. So I feel bad for not knowing your name. I knew Jeff
No.
McComsey's name, which
Well,
makes me even worse for not knowing Flutter.
well, Jeff has done so much great work, and
Yeah.
Fubar was such a amazing thing, and we're gonna work together again hopefully soon. But no, I try to fly under the radar, so that's not on you.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I get that, but I know all sorts of people who try to fly under the radar because I like under the radar. Under the radar is my sweet
Yeah,
spot too.
I guess try to fly is not what I'm saying. It's my personality. Understated is my
Right. No, I
personality.
get it.
But
Um,
yeah, I've had great experiences with other publishers too. I had a great experience with Dark Horse, who
yeah,
collected
Dark
Flutter.
Horse.
Everyone I've worked with there has been amazing. And I love Sandy King at Storm King Comics. She's been a huge supporter of mine. Storm King is horror though, and so like, and I actually in the last 5 years have realized I love to write horror comics and horror stories, but I don't like to live there because I put myself out too much.
No, I get it. Comics is the only medium that I can do horror in at all. I can't read horror. I can't. I had to like really break this down. And the only reason I even discovered that I could read comics horror is my son loves horror. So he's always trying to get me to read this book or that movie. And I'm like, no. He's like, but
Yeah.
it's different. You might like it now. I'm like, no, I've had an
Yes.
entire lifetime to know that I don't like horror.
Yeah. My
But I
partner loves it, and we can't watch the movies right before bed. And when I'm writing, so I write for Tales for Halloween Night. It's an anthology for Halloween that Storm King does.
okay,
And when I write those stories, so I write one a year, and they're short, like 15 pages, but I can't write those at night. I have to write them
right.
like in the middle of the day and then go for a walk with my dog after.
Right. No, no. What So I finally read Joshua Williamson's Nailbiter because I had enough people at the comic shop that I was working at the time telling me how great it was, blah, 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 and not for the horror part, etc. And what I realized is comics are the medium where the reader decides the pacing.
Mm, yeah.
In books, the scenes that are the parts that I don't want to spend time with, the writer decides how many words are in those scenes. And since I'm not good at skimming, the writer decides how much time I have to spend with that. In movies, the editor and the directors decide how much time I have to spend with that. With a comic, I can go, okay, guts coming out, got it.
Yes. Yeah.
I can spend that like a second. Got the gist of this page, flip.
Yes.
you know um
Absolutely.
and sometimes I'll even wind up going back to appreciate the art because I can appreciate the gore out of context. It's in the context that it's like, okay, too much.
Right. Yeah.
Particularly like the I mean, people are like, but you like Last of the Mohicans, that's a really gory movie. I'm like, yeah, but it's like real.
Right.
The gore isn't meant to entertain me, it's meant to disgust me.
Right.
Don't ask me to explain my brain.
I know. Yeah.
So, all right. Now that we're getting into the me babbling phase, I'm going to ask my favorite closing question because I know that you're also running up on your time, and you can list as many or as few as you like. Um, I love to ask people, tell me a comic or comics that you love, but not enough people have read it, and you need them to. You need more people to read it so that you have more people to talk about it.
The first thing that popped into my head is a Maverick book, Needle and Thread.
I love
Um,
Needle and Thread.
and I don't think enough people have uh
I
heard.
stumbled on it. It's yeah, that's pretty
I hadn't heard of it either, and
right.
I actually I read it before I started working on paper plane revisions just to get into that mindset of it. But it's a really great young adult maverick book.
Mhm.
So that is the first thing that popped into my head. And I was just on a panel
And that's
with,
that's David Pinkney and Enun Ana Yurov. Probably butchered that, but
yeah,
yes,
I think
needle and thread.
that's the first thing that popped into my head. I just did a panel with artist writer who has a new graphic novel coming out called Summer Vamp. And I just started reading it, and it's a summer camp for vampires.
Okay.
So light, fun summer read, which I think is something we could all use right now. And her name is Violet Chan Karam,
Okay.
Karim.
And it looks like that
Karam.
book is due out. Oh no, it should be out. It says May 14th.
Yeah, I
I'm
wasn't
right about so.
sure.
Yeah.
We did a panel right before May, the middle of the month. So right before it came out, I guess I got an
Okay.
advance copy. But
It looks cool.
yeah. And you just had Richard on your show, but Scoop is a great
Scoop
book
was
for people.
fantastic.
It might be the last two I mentioned, Scoop and Summer Vamp, those are just out, so people might not have had a chance to pick them up
Right.
yet, but definitely should.
Yeah, no, the, all uh I can't speak 100% for Summer Vamp. I can only go from the cover, but for your book for Richards, this is where I remind people YA is a marketing term. It's because there's enough of a younger audience spin on the book to really market it towards them, but it's also because uh they've found in both comics and novels there are huge numbers of women who don't like the romance and mystery common or comics and books that traditionally were pushed towards women, who YA is where they turn when they're looking for that thing that I don't want to say quite brain candy, but it's certainly the term that's used. The people who would buy at their books at the supermarket. So they're not in the mood for Tolstoy. They're not in the mood for the new Michael Chabon book.
Right.
YA is where they turn. So it's not that it's too young for you if you're an adult, is the point that I'm trying to make.
Right.
If you
Yes.
enjoy Heathers, if you enjoy watching The Breakfast Club,
Yeah.
um, any number of movies. YA books are often. I mean, my wife. I don't want to say she avoided comics. My wife hadn't built her comics um, literacy,
Mm.
and because she's an art teacher, because she is a reader, was having trouble either falling into the art or falling into the reading. And it was also because she was married to somebody who's comics obsessed for a long time. It was easier for her to go, I just don't get it, than to
I-
work at it. And then I brought home from the library for me, I make it clear, I didn't go, oh, you have to look at this. Hilary Fitzgerald Campbell's murder book. My
Mm.
wife is a true crime junkie, so when she saw the memoir of a true crime junkie on my list, on my stack of books, she plowed through it, and then she's like, "Oh, wait, there are true crime comics." She went off and read all of them, and then she discovered that she also likes YA comics, and now she's reads as many comics as I do. She just had to find her thing.
Yeah. Find the ones that speak to her.
Find the thing and then build the literacy, because it is a
Yeah.
specific literacy. That space between the panels is a big deal,
Yes.
particularly when the panels start not being as clearly delineated, or there isn't a I mean sometimes, and this is the hardest thing for non-comic people. Sometimes there are those pages where there isn't a correct order to read it.
Right.
My
Right.
wife will be looking at the page and I'm like, which words? I'm like, no, that's all going on at once. You can read it any direction you want.
Yeah. It's a learn
What?
it's
That's
a
not
learned language for sure. Yes.
right. Right.
Yeah. What I love about young adult is, there's a lot of heavy, deep emotional terrain, but there's also levity to it too. So
Right.
you know, in you get both, and you get some emotional weight and you get some relief. And I think and adults can revisit feelings they had as young adults or kids or teens, but the books are for really for teens and adults, and that's what I
Right.
love.
I would actually argue with young adult, you have more realm for emotion because it's completely okay for a young adult to flip out and find trivial
Yeah,
things to be the
yeah.
end of the world in a way that, like, if it was an adult novel, you'd go, "What the fuck is wrong with you?"
Grow up. I know, right? Yes,
Um, I mean,
absolutely.
we did a Shakespeare panel on the show a long time ago, and I'm thinking about doing another one because he keeps coming up. Go figure, pretty good writer that Will Shakespeare. Um, but something that John Lees brought up was Hamlet's a teenager, and like that makes all the difference. If you're thinking of Hamlet as a 30 something, he's a whiny, self-entitled, what the hell is wrong with you that you got to this age and you're behaving like this? If you think of Hamlet as a 14 or 15-year-old who just lost his father, it's like, oh, this
Right.
is brilliant.
Yes. Yes.
But if you're watching Kenneth Branagh or Mel Gibson, that's not what you think. And for that matter, Shakespeare's hard enough that it's hard to find young actors who can do a Hamlet.
Right.
But that's where comics can have you covered. You
Right.
don't have to find the young actor who can handle Shakespearean language. You can draw them.
Yes.
Um, just another plug for comics as a medium. Jenny, anything else you want to talk about before I let you go? And anything on the horizon? Any places on the interwebs that you want people to find you? Books that you want to plug? Whatever.
You can find me at jenniewood.com, and that's JennieWood. I will be at San Diego Comic-Con doing some panels and
Very
signings, and that
cool.
information will be on my website. And other events too. I live in Boston, so I'll have some events coming up at the end of June and then throughout the year.
Okay. Are they sending you out to ALA too?
I went to ALA last year, it was in Chicago.
Okay.
This year
Okay.
I'm not going because it's in San Diego at
Right.
just a
And you just
month,
didn't want to do it twice
twice in
in
1 month.
like a 1 month. Yeah. Yeah.
But next year ALA will be in Philly, and I'm already planning on that
Okay.
next
They're moving it
June.
around a lot more than they used to go back and forth between Chicago and DC. What's with
Yeah.
these other cities?
Yeah. So I will be in Philly next year. That's the plan. With maybe I'm quite sure some new book news for that. And the last thing I want to say, Tad, is just thank you for having me,
Oh, absolutely. Anytime.
and thank you for the work you do as an educator and a comics advocate. It's amazing that
I,
combination.
I I like don't know how to be anything else. So, they pay me. I mean, like I remember I forget even what we were talking about, but I fell into teacher mode with my boss on the last day of school. And she's like, "You're driving to Pittsburgh today. Go, go, go." What are you doing? And like, I had to duck back in. I'm like, you know that I don't know how to turn teacher off, don't you? She's like, yes.
I think that's a great thing.
So finally getting to be in education again after years being away from it was like just very nice for me because I don't know how to turn teacher off. Jenny, thank you very much. You're welcome back anytime. We do book clubs, or if you just need somebody to geek comics, let me know. Whatever, and definitely if you've got anything to announce, please think of us when you're doing your booking. Otherwise, I know I'll try to stay in touch. And once I've talked to people, when I see the announcement, it's like, oh, I got to send an email.
Yes. Oh, please do. I'll do the same.
So okay. For Jennie Wood, this has been 22 panels. We will see you after the next page.
Hey guys, this is Tyler from 22 Panels. I'm here to tell you all about our Patreon. If you enjoy this show, please consider donating to our Patreon to keep this show going. We have many different tiers, all different levels to help you decide what's right for you. Okay, so get on out there to patreon.com/22panelspodcast.